The marble floor of the Grandview Tower lobby gleamed under crystal chandeliers, but no one noticed the elderly black woman collapsed near the service elevator, her cleaning cart tipped over, bottles of disinfectant rolling across the pristine tiles. No one, except the young woman in the designer coat, who had just stepped out of a private car, her heels clicking to a sudden stop as their eyes met for a single, life-faltering moment. 24-year-old Claire Montgomery had spent her entire life surrounded by wealth, luxury, and people who only saw her last name. But as she knelt beside the trembling woman whose name tag read Dorothy Jenkins, something cracked open inside her chest, a feeling she couldn't ignore, couldn't walk past, couldn't pretend didn't matter. "Please," Dorothy whispered, her voice barely audible, her brown eyes filled with pain and something else, surprised that anyone had stopped at all. "I just need a moment. I'll be fine. Don't let them see me like this. I can't lose this job." Claire looked around the sprawling lobby where at least 30 people moved like ghosts, their faces turned away, their steps quickening, some pulling out phones to avoid eye contact, others simply acting as if a human being wasn't suffering right in front of them. "I'm calling an ambulance," Claire said firmly, but Dorothy's weathered hand gripped her wrist with surprising strength. "No hospitals, please. I can't afford it. I have no insurance. I just need to rest. I have 3 grandchildren depending on me. If I go to the hospital, I'll lose everything." The desperation in her voice hit Claire like cold water, and for the first time in her privileged life, she understood that not everyone lived in the same world she did. Claire made a decision in that heartbeat that would change both their lives forever. She helped Dorothy to her feet, supported her weight, grabbed the cleaning cart with her free hand, and guided them both toward the service elevator, ignoring the stares, the whispers, the shocked expressions of people who recognized her as Harrison Montgomery's daughter, the heiress who was supposed to be at a charity gala right now, not helping the help, in the cramped service elevator that smelled of lemon cleaner and exhaustion. Claire studied Dorothy's face, the deep lines around her eyes that spoke of decades of early mornings and late nights, the gray hair pulled back in a neat bun despite her condition, the uniform that was worn but clean, pressed with pride. "How long have you been feeling sick?" Claire asked gently. Dorothy's breath came in short gasps, her hand pressed against her chest. "Few weeks now, but I can push through. I always do. Raised 4 children on my own after my husband passed. Worked 2 jobs for 20 years. This pain is nothing compared to what I've survived." But Claire saw through the brave words to the fear underneath, the terror of a woman living on the edge where one medical emergency meant losing everything. "I'm taking you to my doctor," Claire insisted, but Dorothy shook her head weakly. "Miss, you don't understand. People like me don't go to people like you's doctors. I appreciate your kindness, truly, but you've done enough. You should go to wherever you were headed. Forget you saw me." The elevator doors opened to the service floor, a gray hallway lined with supply closets and time clocks, the behind-the-scenes of luxury that Claire had never witnessed. She wheeled Dorothy to a small break room with flickering fluorescent lights, a table covered in someone's abandoned lunch, and a couch that had seen better decades. Claire helped Dorothy onto the couch, then did something that shocked them both. She sat down beside her, pulled out her phone, and called her family's private physician, Dr. Peterson, using the emergency number she'd been given for family only. "Dr. Peterson, this is Claire Montgomery. I need you at Grandview Tower, immediately. Service floor break room. It's an emergency," she said with the authoritative tone she'd inherited from her father, the tone that made things happen. Within 30 minutes, Dr. Peterson arrived with a medical bag, his face professional but confused as he examined Dorothy, who protested weakly through every blood pressure check, every listening of her heartbeat. "Ms. Jenkins, you're experiencing cardiac stress, likely angina, and your blood pressure is dangerously elevated. You need immediate care and monitoring. This is serious," Dr. Peterson said gravely, and Claire watched Dorothy's face crumble. Watched years of strength finally crack under the weight of reality. "I can't afford any of this," Dorothy whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I can't pay you. I can't pay for tests. I can't even afford my blood pressure medication most months. I choose between pills and food for my grandbabies." Claire felt something shift fundamentally in her understanding of the world here. Was a woman who had worked her entire life, who had raised children, who cleaned the very buildings where millionaires worked, and she couldn't afford to be sick, couldn't afford to be human. "You're not paying anything," Claire said firmly, meeting Dr. Peterson's eyes with a look that said this was non-negotiable. "Send all bills to me personally, Dorothy. You're getting the care you need. No arguments." Over the next 3 hours, Claire stayed with Dorothy as Dr. Peterson ran portable tests, made calls, arranged for medication to be delivered, and created a treatment plan, all while Dorothy cried quietly, overwhelmed by kindness from a stranger, unable to process why anyone would care. As the sun set outside the small window, casting orange light across the break room, Dorothy finally spoke from the heart. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me. I'm nobody to you, just another face in the background. Why do you care?" Claire was quiet for a long moment, thinking about her life. Her mother who had died when she was 12, the loneliness of wealth, the emptiness of a world where people only valued you for what you could give them. "My mother used to volunteer at community centers before she got sick," Claire said softly, her voice thick with memory. "She would take me with her, and she'd say that every person we meet is carrying a weight we can't see, and the measure of our humanity is whether we help them carry it or walk past pretending we don't notice. When she died, my father buried himself in business, and I buried myself in the life I was supposed to live. Parties and galas and shallow friendships, but I forgot what she taught me. I forgot to see people. Until tonight. Until you." Dorothy reached out and took Claire's hand, her grip weak but warm. "Your mama raised you right, child. She'd be proud of you today." Those simple words broke something open in Claire, and she found herself crying too, grieving not just her mother, but the person she'd become without that guidance, the emptiness she'd been living with for 12 years. That night marked the beginning of a transformation for both women. Claire didn't go back to her penthouse apartment, but instead helped Dorothy home, a small 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood Claire had never visited, where Dorothy lived with her 3 grandchildren, 8-year-old Marcus, 6-year-old Zoe, and 4-year-old Lily, whose mother, Dorothy's daughter, had passed away in childbirth and whose father was unknown. The apartment was small, cramped, but radiantly clean, and filled with loved children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Library books were stacked neatly on a makeshift shelf, and the smell of rice and beans lingered from dinner. The children rushed to Dorothy with hugs and questions, their faces showing relief and worry, and Marcus, the eldest, watched Claire with suspicious eyes. "Who's she, Grandma? Why are you home early? Are you sick?" His voice carried the weight of a child who'd already lost too much and feared losing more. Dorothy settled onto the worn couch and explained what happened, how this angel had helped her, and the children's expressions shifted from suspicion to wonder. Claire knelt down to their level. "Your grandmother is very brave, but she needs to rest and take care of herself, and I'm going to make sure she can do that." Over the following weeks, Claire became a constant presence in their lives, visiting daily, bringing groceries, helping with homework, learning to braid Zoe's hair, playing toy cars with Marcus, reading bedtime stories to Lily. She paid for Dorothy's medications, arranged for follow-up appointments, and insisted Dorothy take medical leave with full pace, something Claire arranged by speaking directly to the building management and making certain generous donations that made them very cooperative. But more than the financial help, Claire gave something more precious: her time, her attention, her genuine care. She started seeing the world through different eyes, the struggle of working families, the impossible choices between healthcare and rent, the dignity of people who worked jobs others looked through them to avoid seeing. Dorothy, for her part, began to heal not just physically, but emotionally, allowing herself to accept help, for perhaps the first time in her adult life. Learning that needing others wasn't weakness, but human. She shared stories of her life with Claire, how she'd grown up in Georgia, moved north for better opportunities, married her sweetheart at 19, raised 4 children while working night shifts at a factory, lost her husband to diabetes when she was 50, put 2 kids through community college, grieved when her youngest daughter died giving birth to Lily, and took in these 3 babies without hesitation because love was stronger than circumstance. Claire listened to every word, absorbing lessons about resilience, sacrifice, and real wealth, a kind that had nothing to do with bank accounts. One evening, about 6 weeks after their first meeting, Claire sat at Dorothy's small kitchen table, helping Marcus with math homework, while Dorothy prepared dinner. And Marcus looked up at her with serious eyes. "Are you going to leave us?" he asked quietly, and the question held years of abandonment fear. Claire's heart clenched. "No, Marcus, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me." He studied her face, searching for truth, then nodded and returned to his fractions. But Claire saw the slight relaxation in his shoulders, the beginning of trust. That night, after the children were asleep, Dorothy and Claire sat together in the quiet. "You've given us so much, Claire, but I worry you're giving up your own life. Your friends, your family, your father must wonder where you disappear to every day." Claire laughed softly. "My father barely notices I exist, unless there's a photo opportunity, and those friends never really knew me. Here, with you and the kids. This is the first time I've felt real in years. You've given me more than I could ever give you." The moment of truth came 2 months after their first meeting, when Claire's father, Harrison Montgomery, demanded she attend a family dinner at his estate. No excuses. And she brought Dorothy and the children with her, a decision that required more courage than she'd known she possessed. The mansion was exactly as imposing as Dorothy feared, sprawling grounds. Marble, everything, staff in formal uniforms. And Harrison Montgomery himself, a tall man with silver hair and eyes that assessed everything in terms of value and return on investment. His face, when Claire walked in with her guests, was a mixture of shock, confusion, and barely concealed disapproval. "Claire, what is this?" "I said family dinner, not a charity event," he said coldly. And Dorothy began to apologize, to gather the children to leave, but Claire stood firm. "They are family, Dad, more family than I've felt in this house since Mom died. And if you can't welcome them, then I'm leaving too." The silence was sharp and uncomfortable, the children pressing close to Dorothy, Claire's heart pounding, Harrison's expression unreadable. Then, something unexpected happened. Harrison looked at Claire. Rhea looked at her, and saw something he hadn't seen in years. His daughter alive, passionate, present, not the hollow society girl going through motions. And he saw in her face an echo of his late wife. The woman who had believed in compassion and community before cancer took her too soon. "Please, sit," Harrison said quietly, gesturing to the dining room. And though the dinner was awkward at first, something gradually shifted. Harrison asked Dorothy about her life, listened to her stories, watched how Claire interacted with the children, with a tenderness he hadn't witnessed since her mother's death. And slowly, painfully, he began to understand how far he'd drifted from the man his wife had loved, how he'd buried his grief in money and distance, how he'd failed to see his own daughter suffering from the same loneliness. By dessert, Lily had fallen asleep in Claire's lap. Marcus was shyly showing Harrison a drawing he'd made at school, and Zoe was chattering about her favorite books, the innocence and warmth of children melting barriers that years of wealth had built. After dinner, as Dorothy helped the children wash their hands in a bathroom larger than her kitchen, Harrison pulled Claire aside. "Your mother would be proud of you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. And I've been a fool. I thought providing money was enough, but I've given you everything, except what you actually needed. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry for the years I've been absent." Claire hugged her father for the first time in years. Truly hugged him, and felt the walls between them begin to crumble. "Help me, Dad. Help me help them. Not just Dorothy and her grandchildren, but everyone like them. People who work hard and still can't afford to be sick. We have so much. We can do so much more than write checks at galas." Harrison pulled back, looked at his daughter's shining eyes, and nodded. "What do you need?" That question opened a door to transformation within 6 months. Claire and Harrison established the Eleanor Montgomery Foundation, named for Claire's mother, focused on providing healthcare access, childcare support, and educational opportunities for working families, with Dorothy as a paid consultant and community liaison, using her lived experience to guide their programs. Dorothy's health stabilized with proper care and reduced stress. The children thrived with resources and stability, and Claire found her purpose, her passion, her reason for the wealth she'd been born into. The foundation's first clinic opened in Dorothy's neighborhood, offering sliding-scale healthcare, and on opening day, Dorothy cut the ribbon with Claire beside her, both women crying happy tears, surrounded by a community that had been seen, valued, and served. But the most profound change was in the relationships themselves. Dorothy became the mother figure Claire had lost, offering wisdom, tough love, and unconditional acceptance, while Claire became the daughter Dorothy's heart had room for, the answer to prayers she'd whispered in dark moments of overwhelm. The children called Claire Auntie Claire and spent weekends at the Montgomery estate, which slowly transformed from a cold museum to a home again, filled with laughter, crayon drawings on the refrigerator at Claire's insistence, and the sound of children playing in gardens that had been silent for years. Harrison, too, was transformed, stepping back from some business obligations to be present, to volunteer at foundation events, to know the families they served by name, to remember the man he'd been when Eleanor was alive, the man who'd believed business success meant nothing without human contribution. 1 year to the day after their first meeting, Claire organized a small celebration at the same building where Dorothy had collapsed, but this time in the beautifully renovated community room the foundation had created for building workers a space with comfortable furniture, healthy snacks, resources, and dignity. Dorothy stood before the gathering of cleaning staff, maintenance workers, and security guards who had once walked past her suffering, and she spoke from the heart. "A year ago, I fell down in that lobby, and I thought I was invisible. I thought nobody cared if I lived or died, but one person stopped. One person saw me as a human being worth helping, and that one act of kindness changed everything, not just for me, but for my babies, for this community, for all of us here today. I want you to remember that you matter. Your lives matter, your health matters, your dignity matters. And I want to thank Claire Montgomery for seeing me when I felt invisible, for loving us when we were strangers, for showing me that angels sometimes wear designer shoes." She finished with a laugh through tears, and the room erupted in applause, many wiping their own eyes. Claire stood and hugged Dorothy, then addressed the room. "Dorothy taught me more than I could ever teach her. She taught me that real wealth isn't in bank accounts, but in connections, in community, in showing up for each other. My mother used to say that we're all carrying invisible weights, and our job is to help each other carry them. I forgot that lesson for too long, but Dorothy reminded me. And now it's my life's work to make sure no one feels invisible, to make sure kindness isn't rare but normal, expected, guaranteed, because every person in this room, every person in this city, every person in this world deserves to be seen, to be valued, to be cared for when they're suffering." The gathering continued with food, music, and stories, with Marcus showing off his improved math grades, Zoe reading a story she'd written about her two grandmas, Dorothy, and the memory of her birth mother, and Lily dancing unself-consciously to music, secure in the knowledge that she was loved and safe. As the evening wound down and the children dozed on a couch, Claire and Dorothy stood by the window overlooking the city, the lights stretching endlessly into the night, each one representing lives, struggles, hopes, and dreams. Do you ever think about that day, about what would have happened if you'd walked past like everyone else? Dorothy asked quietly. Claire nodded. Every day, I think about how close I came to being like them, to looking away, to protecting my comfort instead of seeing your need. I think about how different my life would be right now, lonelier, meaningless. You saved me as much as I helped you, Dorothy. You gave me purpose, family, love, everything that matters. Dorothy smiled, her face peaceful in a way it hadn't been in years. The worry lines softened, the fear gone from her eyes. God works in mysterious ways, bringing people together right when they need each other most. I was at my lowest, and you were lost, and somehow we found each other in that lobby. And now look at us, look at what we've built. Claire squeezed her hand. This is just the beginning. There are so many more people who need to be seen, who need to know they matter, and we're going to reach them, one person at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Over the following years, the Eleanor Montgomery Foundation expanded to 12 cities, providing healthcare, childcare, job training, and emergency assistance to thousands of working families, always guided by the principle that everyone deserves dignity, that no one should be invisible, that kindness is not charity but justice. Dorothy remained involved until her peaceful passing at age 78, surrounded by her grandchildren, now young adults, thriving in college and careers. Claire, Harrison, and a community that loved her deeply. Her legacy imprinted on every person she'd helped, every policy she'd influenced, every heart she'd touched. At her memorial service, held in the largest community center the foundation had built, hundreds gathered to honor a woman who had spent her life serving others, and who, in her moment of greatest need, had been seen by someone who chose love over indifference. And that choice had rippled outward, transforming families, communities, and the very definition of what it means to be wealthy. Claire, now in her 30s and leading the foundation full-time, spoke through tears about the woman who had changed her life, who had shown her that privilege is only meaningful when it's used to lift others. That true connection transcends every boundary of class, race, and circumstance. That the most important question we can ask is not what can I get, but who can I see, who can I help, who needs to know they matter. Mark S., now a medical student, spoke about his grandmother's strength and the aunt who had kept her promise never to leave, how their intervention had broken cycles of struggle and created new possibilities. Zoe, studying social work, read a poem about invisible people and those who choose to see them. And Lily, now a bright teenager, simply said, "My grandma taught me to work hard, and Aunt Claire taught me to dream big. And together they taught me that love is the most powerful force in the world, stronger than money, stronger than fear, stronger than anything that tries to divide us." As Claire stood in that packed memorial service, looking at the faces of people whose lives had been touched by one moment of compassion in a marble lobby, she understood fully what her mother had tried to teach her all those years ago, that we are all connected, that suffering ignored is humanity diminished, that kindness is not a weakness but a revolution, that every person we pass is carrying a weight we cannot see, and our choice to help carry that weight or walk away pretending blindness is the choice that defines who we are. And she knew with absolute certainty that the moment she'd knelt beside Dorothy Jenkins instead of walking past was the moment her real life had begun, the moment she'd stopped existing and started living, the moment she'd found family, not in blood or wealth, but in the courageous act of seeing another human being and choosing, simply and powerfully, to care.